Hi guys, welcome back to another video. 2023 C43 AMG, brand new C-Class, W206, everything pretty much new with that just in general, and W206 C43. So what I'm actually going to do in this video is tell you about all the things you actually really need to know. There's so much that's different, and there's so much science behind it that I won't bore you to death with that stuff. Right, what's the big elephant in the room then? So with this W206 C43 and the new C63 as well, no more are the big great engines. We lose in the C43, we lose the 3-litre V6, and we go down to a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine. To make this as simple as possible, basically it's the exact same engine as you find in the current gen A45S, except for some reason it puts out slightly less power, 408 horsepower instead of 420, I think the A45S has. However, there are some subtle differences which I will go into after I've put some fuel in. Do quite a lot of these trips now. Every visit here hurts now. Ooh, Lamborghini Urus. Nice colour that actually. Right, so where was I? Engines. Oh yeah, the bits that actually make the new engine in the C43 slightly different to the A45S. We've got an electric gas turbocharger, quoted straight from Mr. AMG. Basically, that just improves kind of the whole responsiveness. It's tech straight from AMG F1. Supposedly you're meant to have more torque, kind of across the whole rev range, particularly lower down. To kind of quantify that, you're gonna have to kind of feel it, so won't go too much into that. There's also something else in addition attached to the engine. I've already forgotten the word for it, but basically under certain circumstances it can give you an extra 14 horsepower. Sounds a bit like a KERS system, that again from F1, but details of that, you know, won't bore you with. But effectively you've got the same power unit as you get in the A45S, with slightly less power. Now, as you can imagine, that leads straight on to the next thing. Exhaust note. You know, the A45S, at the end of the day, for a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine, sounds pretty good, but it's a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine. Not going to sound anything like this, the 3-litre V6. And already, according to first drives, it actually sounds a little bit worse than the current A45S. That actually sounds a little bit better. So, you know, I'm very much a sounds person. I don't particularly drive fast, but I like all the drama that goes along with it. So you know, it's the direction we're headed in. There's not much we can do with that, but it is what it is. Now, even in this current gen C43 AMG, they do pump a little bit of sound through the speakers into the cabin. Some people laugh at you for that. They're doing the same thing in the new C43, except rather than, you know, a totally fake sound, apparently there's a microphone sensors directly in the exhaust, which then gets fed in through the speakers. So at least it's a real sound that's being pumped in. So make of that what you want. At the end of the day, if it sounds all great and amazing in here, but then it sounds like a lawnmower on the outside, yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing, isn't it? That's the main elephant in the room, I suppose. The thing that we're all worried about, you know, this downsizing of engines. We're probably more worried about it in the C63, to be fair, because of the very fact that that's going from a V8 right down to a 2-litre 4-cylinder. It's going to have crazy power, no doubt, but it's just going to sound crap, for want of a better word. Right, moving on. As I mentioned, the whole car is pretty much different. Suspension, transmission, all sorts. So let's move on to the one thing that's not going to be different. That's exactly the same as you find in this car, carried across to the new one, and that's the four-wheel drive system. In this car, the 4MATIC, it's not like the ones that you find in the A45S or, you know, the E63S. It's a rear biased four-wheel drive system. 61% to the rear, 69% to the rear, 31% to the front. And to be fair, I've never really had an issue with the 4MATIC system in this car. Sometimes it comes on a little bit too strong, but you know, you can kind of turn that into the sport setting or turn it off completely and it's absolutely fine. So if they were to keep one thing the same from this car to the new one, the four-wheel drive system, that's a win. Next thing you actually need to know, transmission. And this is a big one because the transmission in this, I'm not the biggest fan of it. It's a torque converter. Again, not going to bore you with the specifics, the science, because that won't mean anything to you, doesn't mean anything to me. I'm going to tell you what it actually feels like in reality. Driving around town in comfort mode, absolutely amazing. Really seamless gear shifts, like you literally can't even feel them, and it's great. But when you do go into sport mode, particularly if you go into manual mode, it's slow. It is slow and sluggish. You have to pull the gears early. Other times, you know, trying to set off really quickly, you know, you can floor it and nothing will happen for like a second. Now obviously, you know, on a roundabout or anything like that, you're trying to pull out really fast, that can actually be quite dangerous. So that torque converter gearbox had its pros and cons. Overall, I didn't really like it. The new car has a wet clutch MCT something gearbox. Basically, it's carried over straight from the current gen E63S, GLC 63S, and those are good gearboxes. Next big thing, the steering. So steering and suspension, let's combine those. The suspension in this, it's stiff. You know, you've got the AMG kind of variable drive selects between comfort, sport and whatnot. It is on the stiffer side, but that's something that doesn't really bother me too much. In the new car, they've added a lot more AMG elements to kind of stiffen it up, make it feel a lot more sporty. But the big difference is with the steering. We've got rear axle steering, up to 2.5 degrees. So in the real world, you know, that helps with kind of low speed maneuvering. You know, so that's, in practicality terms, that's great. But then also in performance terms, where that helps is, again, dynamic driving, kind of, you know, tight twisty corners, and then at high speed it helps the car be a little bit more stable. So it's kind of a win across the board. So off the top of my head, as far as I'm aware, those are all the big changes kind of beneath the skin of the new W206 C43. What's different on the outside? Obviously the car looks completely different. I like the new shape of the car. It looks quite sporty, a lot more angular lines. One big thing that's changed is that the new car will come with 20-inch wheels front and rear. Apparently it's something that they've never ever done on any kind of C-class, you know, C43, C63. In the C63 Coupe, they did do 19 at the front and 20 at the rear, but the fact that they've done 20 up front, you know, makes the car look a lot more aggressive on its stance. The ride's going to be worse, but that's, again, as I've mentioned, that's not something I'm too bothered about. So yeah, that's something to take note of. As far as I'm not sure that those 20-inch wheels come as standard. Mercedes being Mercedes, they probably don't. But you know, the car does look it looks a lot more aggressive in coupe, in saloon form, because that was the problem between kind of the saloon and the coupe. Obviously, I've done a lot of modifications to my C43 to help it look a lot more sporty, a lot more aggressive, especially with all the Brabus parts, you know, just to differentiate it. So what Mercedes have actually done with this new C43, and what they do this with the current gen A45, the current gen CLA 45S as well. They do their own aerodynamics package. So what that kind of adds is a more aggressive kind of front lip, front side skirt things, more aggressive side skirts on the side. You get fins at the back and a rear lip spoiler, which, you know, again, help the car look a lot more AMG and, you know, different to the just the standard W206 C-Class. And then, guys, the final thing that's a big difference between kind of the old car and this car is it's going to be the price tag. You know, the new car, I don't think we've had official figures from it just yet, but apparently it's going to kind of start around that 65k mark, which is steep. You know, £65,000 for effectively a baby AMG. So what do you reckon? Is that justifiable? You know, it wasn't for me in, you know, the current climate and the fact that the car's not here, but you know, I do really like the new C43. It could be something that I swap to in, you know, a couple of years' time when it ain't £65,000. Yeah, I've screwed this up, haven't I? Might as well end the video right here, guys. I'm pretty sure I've pretty much covered everything there. All the main changes, like I said. If you want to watch the really in-depth stuff, first drives, I always very much recommend Mr. AMG, just to get into the nitty-gritty details. And if, you know, you've got like half an hour to watch a video, and definitely concentrate. But for me, these are kind of the real-world differences, the things that are actually going to, you know, you're going to see day in, day out, and actually notice if you were to own the new C43 AMG compared to, you know, someone who's owned the current gen facelift C43 and also the previous CLA 45. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.